Hey, good evening, everyone. We will call this meeting to order. Try to be respectful of your all's time. This is the February 22nd business meeting of the Scott County Fiscal Court. If you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, I would greatly appreciate it. Let us pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. We need to recognize that Kara Oliver is serving as our court clerk alternate. Does that take a motion? It does. It does take a motion. Motion from Mr. Rick Hostetler, second from Mr. Pratt. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No backing out now. With that said, we'll move to number 5. We'll circle back up and do the roll call. Let's go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Hostetler?
Present.
Mr. Jones? Mr. Wallace?
Here.
Mr. Corman?
Present.
Mr. Ellison? Mr. Pratt?
Here.
Mr. Livingston? Mr. Culbertson?
Here.
Mr. Livingston.
And Judge Covington.
Present. Thank you. Number 5 is consideration of the minutes from our previous meeting. Any questions or comments related to those as presented?
No questions. Motion.
Motion from Mr. Hostetler, second from Mr. Corman. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Would like to present the transfers as presented by email. Any questions or comments related to those? Would there be a motion? Motion from Mr. Pratt, second from Mr. Wallace. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Bills and hand checks. Any questions or comments?
What was the large $300,000?
Yeah, there was a Stacy sent a jail one today too.
It's just jail fund from general fund, $300,000.
Just general expenses?
Yes. Michelle, would you like? Michelle's nodding. So. Yeah. Funding, just general budgetary expenses. Motion. Second. Any other questions or comments? Rick Hostetler with the second. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Let the record reflect that Sheriff Tony Hampton submitted fees in the amount of $45,237.77. Also, let the record reflect that Rick Hostetler and myself, Joe Covington, completed our training unit, and we're both happy to have that done. And now we'll move to number 10, Airport Board appointment. We have shared that this is a joint appointment with the city. We have looked at several applications. Mayor Jenkins has looked at several applications, made phone calls as well. And at this time, we are both wanting to recommend Jason Stone for this joint appointment. I've shared this information via email. Are there any questions or comments related to that recommendation?
So is Mr. Stone, does he reside in the city?
He resides in Scott County.
Okay, so he resides in Scott County.
Yes.
Okay, and he's a registered voter.
You know, I've not checked the registration, but I can.
Okay. Is that, according to our ordinance, that's part of
All right.
part of what we have to do.
Could we?
We can approve him based
approve
on
it subject to confirmation that he is a registered voter.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I'll make that motion, and it will be contingent upon his voter registration in Scott County.
All right. Second for Mr. Corman. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. I believe the city will take that up for consideration on Monday night. We'll try to have this confirmed by tomorrow and share by email that information. Legacy Trail. Service fees amendment. Chelsea Burke is with us. Chelsea, would you like to come up to the podium if there's any questions that anyone might have? Chelsea works with Strand and Associates, has been heavily involved in our Legacy Trail project, and appreciate her expertise and work. This is a required amendment for the scope. We're expanding the scope of the work, and essentially it's going to include cultural historical analysis and Section 106. And it's an additional $49,371, but it does not impact our match. Chelsea, would you like to add anything to that discussion or anything else?
Yeah, I'll just state that, that's just part of the environmental services that will be required from the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet.
Do you foresee any other steps that we haven't already covered?
Yeah, so just like a part of the project, after we get the environmental clearance, then we'll move on to the right-of-way phase.
The right-of-way negotiations.
Exactly.
And letters have been sent out to property owners, and there has been dialogue with property owners. It's
Correct.
just the negotiation phase is after this environmental phase.
Right.
So the 49,000 is doesn't have an impact on the court side of that.
It does not. Motion? Second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.
That was easy and painless. Painless. And that moves us to city request for annexation. I have shared, we've shared via email the record from planning and zoning. We've also shared a map of the requested approval. And Devin and Emily, Devin Golden and Emily Bertram is here. I hope I said that right. No.
Close enough.
No, Emily, I can't do that. You got to help me. Buttram. So they are here and would be available for any questions. But essentially, as we shared via email, and let me get back to my email from Cam. It's a moratorium that was passed last spring that requires an exception to be met. And Devin, yes, welcome, and please share.
This is a unique new thing to do. Obviously, the conversations about annexation statewide don't impact Scott County as uniquely as they do other jurisdictions, since we do benefit from, we're exempted from that crediting under occupational license fees. So annexation isn't as harmful to Scott County as it is to some other counties. Annexation is a condition of the zone change approval for this project, like it is with most zone changes that fall within the urban service boundary and qualify. So you'll notice the larger parcel there it's the Jennings property on Paynes Depot, and a portion is annexed, and you'll notice that only 30 acres are slated for zone change, but a significantly larger portion is being annexed, and that's just based on us connecting to the abutting, the adjacent and contiguous city property like the statute contemplates. So worked to minimize the amount of property annexed for the property owner benefit, but had to make that connection. And I know that the folks, the Dillos who are with Limestone Farms are here as well in case you have questions about the ultimate project that is subject to the zone change and the annexation. But like I said, a unique position that we're asking under that Senate bill. They line out some some ways that cities can move forward with an annexation in the meantime, and we just wanted to check that box and get the court's approval.
So Devin, my issue, and this is my district, is that it has to do with the road that runs to the distillery property. That road was originally a state road. When Paynes Depot was widened, there was agreement made between the county and the state at that time. The county would take over that road to service that road. That road is a county road that's going to lead into a city annexed property. And so my belief is that road, that stub road should be annexed into the city, or at least ownership or maintenance be taken by the city. And is that the understanding that you have, that the city, upon annexation, that they would take over the ownership and the maintenance of that road?
So before she answers, Andrew, I sent you a slide. If you could put that up for us.
Just so I'm clear, are you talking about Paynes Depot or that little road that comes?
No, Paynes Depot is a state road.
Frontage
That's what
Road
I'm getting ready to
5.
show you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and while they're pulling the map up, I actually called Whitley over at Planning and Zoning today just to talk about this some. She works a lot in annexations, and
Thank
I
you,
wanted to make
Andrew.
sure that we had parallel understandings. So the properties right there above are all county properties still. The property being annexed will be the city property served by that road, one of the properties served by that road. And she confirmed that you don't really annex a road. You just, as the city annexes, it takes over. This is unique because obviously it comes off of the adjacent property on the opposite side, and it surpasses all those county properties. So I know we've had another project that was kind of unique like this. I think what it should come down to is the development plan part, because ultimately I'm assuming it's largely based on the use of the property and the wear and tear on the road compared to those three, I think, are those just residential lots right there?
Just 3 residential lots.
Yeah.
Andrew, could you zoom in just a piece more? That's perfect. And that's perfect. And it just shows that the stub at the very end of Frontage Road 5 will be annexed in. I've talked to JR. The road is in good condition. Any improvements would be the responsibility of the property owner if it wanted to do so for these commercial purposes.
Right.
But, as we go forward, I think what Mr. Wallace's concern is, we all know that corner will eventually be annexed in.
Right.
When that's annexed in, the city, in my estimation as well, the city should assume maintenance of that road.
Right, as those properties abutting it are, and I know we had the same conversation on the R&L properties, R&L carriers.
Cherry Blossom Spur.
And that's a unique one as well, because the entire spur is abutted by county property, and then you go around and it serves that highly industrial or commercially used property. So I do understand the question. We'd be glad to look into opportunities in these unique circumstances where the entire road is abutted by county property but ultimately serves a city property. Whether there's a corridor annexation comparator that can occur with the road in terms of maintenance. But as a part of the annexation, it wouldn't be automatically absorbed into the city's assets. That would have to be approved by the council to accept it.
Well, and I want the court to understand this has no reflection upon Limestone Farms and the distillery and that development. I'm in full support of it. I just these situations, and we might want to call them unicorns. I want to be sure that we don't have these throughout the county, where the city is on one, has part of a road, and then the county has part of the road. I think it needs to be the one way or the other, and I suggest this to the judge, maybe there's a way that once 50% of the linear feet is annexed into the city, then, or something along those lines, that the city takes it over at that point. A trigger mechanism that would convert the maintenance back to the city versus the way it currently sits.
Yeah, and unicorn's a good term. I mean, these are kind of one-off issues, but we can research this isn't unique to us. I'm sure this happens all kinds of places, just where, especially because we only do consensual annexations. We don't do non-consensual annexations. We obtain a consent to annex form from the property owner, and it's a very collaborative process, whereas if we wanted to, we could go through the non-consensual annexation process and pull those properties in. But, that's not how we typically operate. So we'd be glad to research how other jurisdictions handle maintenance of roads when situations like this happen.
Yeah, I'm sure we could come up with some kind of agreement that says, hey, this was when the city will take it over. But that's just my concern, because I don't want some of it being city and some of it being county, and
Right.
there's, who takes care of it.
I get it. Yeah, we'd be
Valid
glad to look
points.
into that.
Mr. Hostetler.
He lives in Lexington. In a short piece, you are going to take it, the city will take it, maybe I misunderstood you. I just see a little short piece of that fronts on the property. Will you take that little piece? I mean, it's probably not 100 yards. I don't know. I can't tell, but
I think it would still remain a county road.
the whole
I
thing.
I think it
all
would,
the way
just
really
based
to
on
that driveway that comes off and goes to that existing barn. Yeah. I just thought, must have misunderstood you. I thought you said you would take that little neck there. It's not much, probably 100 yards, maybe not even 100 yards. I don't know.
I mean, we're of course not opposed to it. I think administratively, just the way that planning and zoning maintains the street map, and we'll loop Whitley in on that conversation as well. But I think some kind of designation of what percentage has been adopted, and there might be, some roads might be too large to make that distinction. Old Oxford is
Right.
a main road with partial city, partial county, so that might be an exception. But for small roads like this, I think we can find some kind of a middle ground to make that easier.
I do think that looking at, once there's a percentage that falls into the city, that we could look at just having an automatic, as Mr. Wallace mentioned, a trigger that would move forward with the city taking maintenance over. But for this, JR and I talked. JR, this road is in good shape. You all, scrape it, salt it, and
And there's several access roads that we got from the state.
yeah. But I would hate for the city to have to send a truck out there just for that section to scrape and salt. I mean,
I understand that.
it's
Well,
there's no.
It's Mr. Wallace's district. He could go out there with a little shaker of salt. That's what I think.
A man of the people.
Is that a motion? Chad Wallace takes over maintenance.
So just one other comment. The tax base wise, it still doesn't change the.
Does not impact the county tax base, period.
Now, can I make a comment on that real quick?
David Livingston, the floor is yours.
So you mentioned about last year, the change in statutes and requiring this. So typically, this would not even come before us. Correct?
Right.
So it never comes before us when they're annexing. And it was basically to kind of put a pause because it doesn't affect us and what's going on because we have the long-term statute where the net profits and payroll, that's what this is all about. Mm-hmm. But then there are counties out there to where when the city annexes, that county loses any future potential revenue, yet they still have all the same services that they have to offer as they continue on. So that's why the legislature did this last year, to kind of make this happen, but it really shouldn't apply to us, but it does because it's just a statewide thing.
Right, and we're just, like I said, checking that box.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you'll still get your 1%. We'll get our 1%, and the only impact will be to the business on the property and the property tax assessment. They'll be contributing city and county.
And so they'll be tying on the sewer, but that's GMWSS. And are they Kentucky American or is that GMW? I don't know.
I think it's GMWS.
Wouldn't matter. It's still, that's all. Doesn't
Right.
have anything to do with us, right?
So
Right.
no, it doesn't have anything to do with us. So what we would need, if the pleasure of the court is to approve this exception for and allow for the annexation, I believe that's the correct way to word the motion.
Yeah, you can just say that I guess the motion would be that the fiscal court concurs to the annexation.
And Judge, but now the sale of alcohol, now that will go to the city. That will not go to the county.
Our ABC coordinator is shaking her head, and that is true. It'll go into the city, and we won't have anything to do with that. go ahead. She's taking her treasurer hat off and putting her ABC hat on.
It's based upon the polling precinct. So if that is a county precinct, then it will go to the county.
Really?
You taught me something. But Michelle, if it's in the city limits,
Depends on where, depends on, ABC is dependent upon the vote, the precinct in which the votes are made in that area. So that might be city, that might be a city area, it goes to the city. The precinct is county. That's how the state recognizes it.
We are talking
Devin,
to
you-
the clerk's office.
I'm not aware of that. We'd have to do a little research on our side. I'll defer to you, but that's not something where, yeah.
so
Well, Judge, I'm in support, like I said earlier, of the distillery and the annexation and the development. And I'll make that motion to, I guess, just approve the annexation or approve.
consent to annexation.
Consent to annex.
We have a motion and a second from Mr. Livingston. Any other questions or comments?
Just one other, and it goes right back to the road. I was just looking through the conditions from P&Z, from the commission. Doesn't that address a little bit of that road problem?
Yeah.
Aren't they supposed to?
And Mr. Dillo, and he can speak to it if he wants, but he's got to do road improvements to that
On
road.
that county road, if he, is that
If so-
if he desires, or?
That's not the ongoing maintenance. It's just if they want to make improvements to the road as part of their project, it's their cost. But I'll step aside for you.
Sorry. I think we actually have to by state recommendations because we're bringing tanker trucks through there. So being that road, we have to widen it to 24 feet. We have to make those improvements. I don't want Chad doing the maintenance on the road. I'll take JR all day long.
I don't blame you. I'd take you too.
But we do have to pay for all the improvements down that road, and it is GMWSS as well.
Okay.
I do have a question, just one quick question, because I've been dealing with this a little bit with this new Canewood stuff. Is there going to be any traffic study on the impact of, especially right into there off of Paynes Depot, like big tanker trucks and stuff stopping? Because we're kind of dealing with that a little bit on 460 right now. So
I would say this will be handled in the development plan, and that when that comes, that will be handled through that.
Yeah, sorry. We've been asked already by P&Z to provide a traffic study during the main development plan, so that'll come with that. But it's not the tanker trucks that are coming through, it's just the amount of traffic coming in.
oh yeah, well, I was going to mounted traffic too, and just people stopping to turn
Yeah,
in.
exactly.
And people trying to get out of there and go left. I could see being a
Yeah,
that's a
that was
high
one of the
being a
matters of
problem.
contention. That's why we have to widen that in order to get enough room for a tanker truck plus a vehicle to come out of there.
Yeah.
And just for comment, like, this is an exciting development, and the potential of having 2 distilleries in our community, coupled along with a world-class brewery that we have, the tourism aspects, all the synergy from these projects is just exciting, and I really appreciate the investment in our community, and I think it's a great project, and look forward to enjoying a nice draft.
Careful how you word that.
Yes, but no, it's exciting, and it'll be I'm sure it'll be a great project.
It'll be, I think everybody will be happy with it.
So, any other comments? No? Okay, so Rick had a question, but we had a motion, we had a second. So, are there any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all very much. Appreciate your all's time. We will now move to number 13, net recovery agreement. Just there's a clarification, and I'm going to turn it over to Cam.
Yeah, sorry, Judge. On the 25th, everyone will recall that the court voted to allocate the $110,000 of opioid abatement money toward the net recovery study. But it was stated at the meeting that would be conditioned upon the county's right to terminate the agreement if the conditions of the study were not met prior to the commencement of the study. I think we had some discussion about FDA approvals and so forth. So following that meeting, they sent me a draft agreement for review, and really the only sort of sticking point was subsection 3.1 of that agreement, and it deals with our right to terminate the agreement. And what they put in the agreement, which I think probably is fair, but it's a little different than what we said, is it says, in addition, by providing written notice to NRC, which is them, the grantor, which is us, may terminate this agreement for any reason and at any time prior to the due date of the first payment or June 30th, 2024, whichever is earlier.
So that's what they put in.
That's what they put in, and I suggested let's add the language based on the discussion at the meeting. The grantor may also terminate this agreement and receive a full refund of any payments made to NRC if the conditions of the study are not met prior to the commencement of the study. And they sort of came back to me, well, we're not really super comfortable with that language. We'd rather just you not pay us anything, and just you could terminate the agreement if you want to before that sort of drop dead date of June 30th. I said, well, that's not exactly what we said in the meeting, so I need to take it back to the court to see what you all are comfortable with. If you all want to approve that, that's fine. I'll tell them we're good. If you don't, I'll tell them that too.
And their goal is to have 500 participants. And I think their big picture is to have enough counties that have commitments for up to 500 participants by June 30th. They're not going to be able to, that's all. So once they get that commitment of 500 participants, then they would send us a bill.
And other counties, whoever may be already signed on.
Correct.
To get that.
Their position is once we're in, but until we make the first payment, we have the right to bail.
Yeah.
I mean, and in their written agreement, that's still the case.
Right. It's just that it was a little different than what we talked about in court, so I felt that we needed to come back to you all to see if you're comfortable with it.
What is, it says prior to the due date of the first payment. So when is, or June 30th? So what
That is a good
could
question.
be
Earlier date.
what could be the impetus for the due date of the first payment? Because
I suppose they get agreements from, X number of counties that add up to 500 participants.
Well, from what I read, I think we have to pay as soon as we have an eligible person enter. And I should have highlighted it.
Yeah, there's some of that language, but they're not gonna. What I understood, even with them online with this last when we voted, what I understood is their goal was to have this in place, and they're not going to ask for any money from anybody until.
So here's what I read.
Within 30
It says within 30 days of NRC making a written request to the grantor. They're not going to make a written request until they get commitments from enough counties
So
to
I
get.
guess, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Judge.
That's all right.
I guess that, Ryan, to answer your question, the date, whenever they make that request, then 30 days from that would be the due date. So you can terminate at any time,
I personally feel like that still gives us plenty of time to.
Yeah, I'm not
Change
saying
their
it's,
mind if we
I'm not
needed
saying
to.
it's unfair or
Sure.
unreasonable. It's just different from
Yeah.
what we talked about.
But
So-
I guess my comment is if we still have that amount of time, that's good for me. I don't know anybody else feels.
So essentially, if y'all are good with the presented contract, then we don't need anything.
Okay.
I mean, is that how you feel?
Yeah.
We don't need to take any action.
We've already approved the agreement. Cam was just,
Which I appreciate.
and I appreciate Cam's detail.
I just feel like it was a material term, so I wanted you all to
So
weigh in on it.
if they put somebody in the study and then they request the money, we can still not pay the money? So that's what I don't understand.
But they're not going to request any money until they have,
If you read that whole document, there's a lot of things they have to do
yeah.
Well, because
before they ever.
it also says that they intend to treat approximately 500 people in the silver study, although the actual number of the study may be substantially more or substantially fewer. So they could have a substantially fewer number of people put in the study and then request the money, and then we'd have to pay all of it. Like, that's where I'm kind of getting confused in the 1.2.2. Like, that's where I don't understand when, because the way I read this, and I read it through here somewhere earlier, as soon as they put somebody in, they're going to request the money, and we have 30 days to pay it. But I think once they request it, we have to pay.
Well, I
Correct?
think it would be due within 30 days of the request. It says shall make an initial payment within 30 days. So if they make a request, and 30 days from that is the due date, you've got the right to terminate, by that due date. It looks like to me, the way it reads, by giving them written notice.
And if they're gonna sign somebody up, we're gonna know about it. They're going through us. They have to be a Scott County resident, correct?
That's my understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have a problem with it, but that's just me. My understanding when they were with us online was they're trying to come up. I thought they said somewhere around 900,000. Maybe I dreamed that up. I don't know, but so that they got to partner with the university. That's all in that agreement. Those guys won't do that. That partnership costs money, but they won't even set any of that up, I don't think, until they've got X amount of money committed. That's the way I understood it. And that's the way I understood the way their response was. They'd just soon not have any money until they got there.
I think, Ryan, if I hear what you're saying, is if if they say, well, we have 5 people in the study and pay us our first payment in 30 days, and you all collectively say that's not enough people, we don't want to go through with it, you can give them notice of termination.
Okay. I just
That's
want to make
the way I
sure,
read this.
because it also says the first payment has to be 60% of the total commitment. So it's not like we're paying for 5 people.
No, we're paying
We'd be paying
60%.
It would be 66,000.
Yeah.
But my understanding also is well, let's say we fund that, and they can only, in the next year, only get 3 people, 5 people to agree to do the study, then we will be refunded that balance. That's the way I understood the reading of it.
Yeah.
That's why we changed to this agreement versus the prior agreement. The prior agreement just simply, we paid the money up front, and there was no contingency on participation. With this agreement, there is a contingency to make sure that the participants go through the study. We're not just funding nothing. So unless someone desires to change the written agreement, then you all have already authorized me to sign the agreement. Is there anyone that would have an objection to that? With nothing voiced,
With that moment of silence.
then
I mean, like if Cam's fine with it,
I think it's. I'm not saying it's unfair. I just thought it was a little different than what we talked about. So we've talked about it now.
But I see what you're saying.
What I'm hearing is,
I agree with what you're commenting.
yeah, people seem to be okay with it.
we'll roll with it.
So yeah.
So with that said, we'll move to new business, and we need to go into an executive session. And the executive session.
That'll be KRS 61.8101C, pending litigation.
So
motion according to KRS.
we have a motion, we have a second.
What he said.
Could you repeat that?
1C.
And we'll be right back.
Second.
Yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the closed session. Is there a motion to come out of executive session? Motion for Mr. Hostetler, second for Mr. Corman. I think he looked at me that way. We are all, anyone, all those in favor of coming out of executive session say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're out of executive session. Let the record reflect that there is no action taken out of the executive session. So with that said, I have no other new business. Does anyone else have new business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second from Mr. Hostetler. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Hey, did you see that text?
Holler at me tomorrow if you want me to do anything.
Certificate of need